Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what has to be one of the most wild, completely mind-boggling paradoxes in the entire culinary world. We're looking at how a crop that looks, well, absolutely ruined is secretly the vital ingredient behind some of the most luxurious and honestly most expensive wines on the planet. It's this crazy story of nature, chemistry, and just an unbelievable amount of human patience.
I mean, ask yourself this. If someone offered you a drink made entirely from shriveled, fuzzy, moldy fruit, would you actually drink it? And what if I told you that you'd have to pay top dollar just for the privilege? It sounds totally counterintuitive, right? Normally, if we see mold on fruit, we toss it straight in the trash. But in the fine wine world, this very specific kind of decay is literally worth its weight in gold.
Okay, let's just get right into it. Imagine these grotesque, gray, fuzzy grapes. They do not look appetizing at all. This is the reality of a fungal infection known as Botrytis cinerea. Now, to the untrained eye, this is a total agricultural disaster, like the whole harvest is ruined. But, surprise, you're actually looking at the foundation for sheer culinary perfection.
It's the ultimate glow-up. And it's really the heart of our explainer today. We go from a horrifying fungus-covered grape cluster to a lineup of the most sought-after, brilliant golden wines on Earth. So how do we get from point A to point B? How exactly does this ugly duckling of a grape turn into a liquid swan?
Well, here's our roadmap for the explainer. First, the magic of noble rot. 2, crafting perfect sweet wines. 3, Sauternes, a French masterpiece. 4, Tokaji, the wine of kings. And finally, 5, sweet wines around the world.
Section 1. The magic of noble rot. Let's get into the science. Now, under normal, damp conditions, Botrytis cinerea is just gray rot. It's a destructive disease that ruins everything. But if the climatic conditions are exactly right, and we're talking humid morning fog followed immediately by warm sunny afternoons, it transforms into noble rot. The fungus settles on the grapes, it penetrates the skins, and instead of rotting the fruit away, it basically allows the water inside to slowly evaporate. So it perfectly dehydrates the grape without destroying it. And what's truly incredible here is how the fungus acts like a tiny, highly specialized chemist. It actually triggers 4 major chemical miracles. First off, because the water evaporates, the sugar concentration just skyrockets. We're talking 300 to 600 grams of sugar per liter. That's massive. Second, it produces enzymes that slash the harsh tartaric acid by like 70 to 90%. Third, it breaks down the cell structures to release these trapped aromatic compounds. And lastly, it actually synthesizes entirely new compounds, specifically these 15-carbon terpenes, which is what gives these wines their insane spicy floral and honeyed aromas. Section 2. Crafting perfect sweet wines. This is a genuinely painstaking process. Harnessing this chemical miracle, it requires a staggering amount of effort. You absolutely cannot harvest these grapes by machine. They have to be picked by hand, and not just by the bunch, berry by individual berry, selecting only the ones perfectly affected by the rot. This means vineyard workers have to make an average of 5 to 6 passes through the vines over 6 long weeks. Sometimes, if the year is tricky, they might do over 10 passes, picking all the way into December. And then once pressed, that sugary juice is so thick and concentrated that the yeast actually struggles to survive in it, making the fermentation process remarkably slow. So, here's the crucial takeaway. This whole process turns traditional winemaking completely on its head. Normally, your first press gives you the best juice, right? And the quality drops the more you press. But with noble rot, because the grapes are so heavily dehydrated, the sugar content and the quality actually go up with every successive press. The first press might yield about 19% potential alcohol, but by the third press, that ridiculously concentrated must can reach a staggering 25% potential alcohol.
Section 3. Sauternes, a true French masterpiece.
Let's ground ourselves geographically for a second. Down in the Graves subregion of Bordeaux, right along the Garonne River Basin, you find the perfect setup. This location is no accident, by the way. The region has these unique clay and gravel soils that are just fantastic at retaining water. This holds the exact right amount of moisture in the ground to encourage our favorite little fungus to show up on the grapes.
But the real magic ingredient is the climate itself. The river creates these incredibly thick morning fogs and really humid nights during the autumn harvest. Then, when that humidity burns off and gives way to the warm afternoon sun, boom! You get the perfect microclimate for noble rot to absolutely thrive on the local Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc grapes. It is such a delicate balance, though. Just a little too much dampness and you get destructive gray rot. But with that afternoon sun, you get the world-renowned Sauternes.
Moving on to Section 4, Tokaji, the wine of kings.
Let's travel east to the Tokaji region in northeastern Hungary. This spot features volcanic soils and a highly specific climate that creates an unbelievably ideal environment for sweet wines. In fact, the winemaking conditions here are so historically and culturally significant that back in 2002, UNESCO actually named the Tokai wine region a World Heritage Site.
And the pedigree of Tokaji Azu, their iconic sweet wine, is pretty much unmatched. Back in the 17th century, Tokaji was an absolute sensation across European royal courts. Legend has it that after tasting it, the French King Louis XIV famously declared it the wine of kings and the king of wines. I mean, that is literally the definition of luxury right there.
What's fascinating about Tokaji is how they traditionally measure its sweetness. They use something called the Putnios scale, which ranges from 3 to 6. A zu is just the Hungarian word for these Botrytis-affected grapes, and a putnio is a traditional basket that holds about 25 kilograms of them. So the scale literally tells you how many of these 25-kilo baskets of pure, noble rotted grapes were dumped into the base wine. Naturally, the higher the number, maxing out at 6 putnios, the sweeter and infinitely more complex the final wine is going to be. Once that wine is pressed and fermented, it heads down into these stunning underground cellars. It rests in specific, small wooden barrels, which are actually named after the towns they were originally made in, like Gonch or Sauternes. They age down there for 2 to 3 years. And because that subterranean environment has incredibly stable temperatures and constant humidity, the wine is perfectly protected while it develops those deep, royal flavors.
Section 5, Sweet Wines Around the World. Let's take a quick global tour.
It's amazing how different regions pair their own specific native grapes with noble rot to create distinct masterpieces. Up in France's Loire Valley, they use the Chenin Blanc grape to craft wines like Quartz de Chaume. Over in Germany, perched on the insanely steep slate-covered slopes of the Mosel River, they rely on the Riesling grape, which perfectly balances all that intense sweetness with this brilliant, zippy acidity. And way down in South Africa, the Constancia region works its magic with the Muscat grape.
Speaking of Constancia, there's a legendary bottle called Vin de Constance. This wine has a history that goes all the way back to the 18th century, and it was wildly prized by politicians, famous writers, you name it. Actually, this specific style of South African wine was historically a favorite of none other than Napoleon Bonaparte. It's famous for this incredibly silky texture, just bursting with flavors of apricot, candied orange, and honey.
Now, as we're looking globally, I want to clear up a super common point of confusion you might run into on wine labels. In the Alsace region of France, you'll see wines labeled Vendange Tardive, which just translates to late harvest. That literally just means the grapes were picked late. They might have noble rot, or they might just be naturally super ripe and sugary. But if you look right across the border in Germany, their term Bier and Auslese strictly guarantees that the grapes must be affected by noble rot. It's a subtle distinction, but an absolutely crucial one for collectors to know. And that brings us to the end of our journey. We've seen how a destructive, ugly fungus, when given the exact right mix of fog, sun, and obsessive human dedication, can synthesize some of the most incredible, complex flavors on Earth. So, I leave you with this. Now that you understand the beautiful, crazy chemical paradox of noble rot, are you ever going to look at mold the same way again? And, more importantly, are you ready to seek out and actually taste one of these historical, liquid gold luxury wines for yourself? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.